Good afternoon, and welcome to the DFS Army YouTube channel. I am Razzle11, and you can find me on X at Razzle11Grinds. Going to take a look at the pitching for today, the 6th of September. It is Friday. We do have a 12-game main slate. This video is coming out kind of later in the day. It's been a busy day, but now I have a few minutes to kind of put this together. I have not done any research at all, so this is still truly a first look at the slate ahead of us. I will be looking at DraftKings as that is where a majority of my action is. If you do play in FanDuel, I would cut my pitcher pool into a half or even a third. Scoring system is different. Pricing isn't quite as tight, allowing us to pay up more at pitching and still be able to get our stacks the way we want them. So let's just dig in quick. At the top, we get Treat Scooble. The AL favorite for Cy Young is a minus 162 road favorite in a game with a 7 total, a K prop of 7.5. Arguably the top option on the slate. Has been phenomenal. Oakland has been hitting some home runs, but Scooble's not a huge home run guy. Plenty of upside. Oakland does strike out plenty. Obviously, with a K prop of 7.5, he's tied with Wheeler and Reagan's, but his juice is slightly on the over, where the other two guys are on the under. So having the top K prop on the slate shouldn't be too surprising, to be honest. Scooble, ton of sense, definitely in a pool. We get Zach Wheeler. He has struggled against Miami, which is really shocking considering how weak of a team Miami is. On the road, he's not as sharp. Big thing stands out. Ks just aren't the same on the road either. With that said, throughout August, he was phenomenal. Since early mid-May, he's only had 2 starts where he's allowed more than 2 earned. It looks like, that tells us enough. Obviously, I mentioned he does have a K prop of 7.5 as well. In the battle, I don't think he's the NL favorite for Cy Young, but he's probably sitting second behind Garcia. He is a minus 238 favorite. Stronger favorite than Scooble. Obviously has a better offense behind him as well. Michael King, I don't mind him. He's been pretty good against San Francisco this season. Fantasy points wise, he's been best at home. Strikeouts have been huge when at home. So that stands out a ton for me. The 94 and 65 and 2/3 home innings is a large number. He has some issues, walks being, the main one, especially of late. But, I still have to like the matchup. He's a massive minus 218 favorite. His K prop sitting at 6.5 with juice on the over. So another strong pitcher with a strong K number. We're going to have a few of those tonight. So I have a feeling we're going to see some high scores from pitching combinations. It's a matter of getting them correct. So each of these guys at the top are guys that I'm going to utilize. Framber Valdez pitching at home, where he is at his best. Definitely somebody I want to utilize. Arizona's obviously a dangerous team. His K prop's 5.5 with juice on the over. He's a minus 185 favorite. Game total of just 7.5. So another pitcher that just makes sense. I definitely would put him below a Scooble and Wheeler, right around King. I think Valdez overall is a better pitcher than King, but King has the better matchup. So that's kind of how I'd phrase those two. I put Reagan's in with those two. I already mentioned his K prop sitting at 7.5 as well, with juice slightly on the under. He is a minus 142 favorite against Minnesota here. Is 1-2 in his 3 starts, but he's managed to pick up a ton of strikeouts when facing the Twins this season. Has allowed just 6 runs in those 3 starts. but his team just hasn't given him any run support. Coming off a 10K performance, but overall, he just hasn't been super sharp the last few starts. Some strikeouts in 2 out of 3, but still no massive performances. Uh, Big series between Kansas City and Minnesota this weekend. I like Reagan's upside. Uh, I am a little worried about just the matchup overall. Facing them for the fourth time this season, not having winning success. Obviously, the K success is nice, and we're looking for a ton of K upside on the slate from our pitching. Bryce Miller, far different pitcher when pitching on the road, so it's something to pay attention to. But he does have K upside. 32 plus fantasy points in 2 out of his last 4 starts. He is a minus 112 road favorite, so pretty close one. K prop of just 4.5 though, so that's kind of telling to me. St. Louis doesn't really strike out a ton, surprisingly, but as you can see, massive difference in his home and road K numbers, and that's something that stands out to me. Uh, of all these guys here over 9K, I think Miller's the one guy that I would look to fade. Um, I don't think he's going to make my pool. I'm kind of looking for reasons not to utilize him. And those big time home road splits kind of stand out to me on this slate because I do feel like we have to nail our pitching options. Max Fried, obviously a ton of upside overall, but he hasn't been super sharp. Toronto, I'm not sure that they are, you know, a cakewalk by any means. Obviously, much of the lineup is a lot weaker now. His K prop's just 5.5 with juice on the under. He's a minus 170 favorite though. Game total 7.5 with juice on the under as well. If you wanted to include Fried, I don't think I'd argue against it. I'm just not making him a priority. If he makes the pool, he's kind of the one of the last men in at this point. But I just don't know if he's going to have the upside that we're looking for to match some of the guys up top, and then there's a couple guys here below that I think have plenty of upside in the spot. One of those guys below him is Nick Pivetta here, taking on a White Sox team that we obviously love to pick on. The big issue is home runs can be an issue for Pivetta. Strikeouts are always there, especially at home. It's just when he makes mistakes, they come at the wrong time, and then runs happen. With that said, like we can see him give up some runs and still put up 25 plus fantasy points. And if he manages to avoid the home run ball, which as you can see he does have issues with home runs at times, we're looking at mid 30s to maybe even upper 30s upside against the White Sox team, which obviously is the worst in baseball. Locating his numbers, he's a minus 285 home favorite. K prop of 6.5. Juice is on the under, which is a little annoying, but I really like the spot for Pivetta on this slate. Brandon Pfaadt, somebody that we've used mostly when he's at home, I believe. K numbers are better at home, etc. Obviously, 2 out of his last 4 starts, he does have double-digit strikeouts, one of which coming against a difficult Dodgers squad. Shows you what his ability is. I'm just not going to go there against Houston tonight. Kyle Tucker's making his return for Houston. That lineup's a difficult one to deal with. I would much rather use Sean Manaea here. Cincinnati strikes out plenty. He was strong against Cincinnati the first time he faced them. Only 21 fantasy points while picking up the win. But he does have upside. He's throwing the ball extremely well. 25 strikeouts over his last 3 starts. Big time numbers there. Getting to pitch at home, whereas overall fantasy points are better. K rate's much better. Does give up more home runs, which is kind of shocking. But I think Manaea makes a ton of sense. K prop of 5.5 with juice on the over. He is a minus 170 home favorite. Game total of just 7.5. Kind of stands out to me. So I think Manaea is definitely worth it. I think my first look lineup is going to try to build around Pivetta and Manaea as a combination just to see. Doesn't feel right, but trying to match some upside in spots that I think you can get there. Obviously, these two at the top are more of a priority, but we'll kind of see how things come together. Kevin Gausman has been at his best when on the road. Actually, been extremely strong away from home. Should get a K boost, I think, but his Ks have been all over the place this season. He is an underdog in this game, but I actually think for GPP purposes, I think he has more upside than Max Fried does. So I wouldn't mind using him. So I'd slide him ahead of Fried, but I think by the end of us, me putting together a pool, he might not even make it. Or he could be one of the last guys in. It's kind of to be determined at this point. Kind of scrolling down, Landon Knack has some ability, but I don't really think I'm going to take him against Cleveland. Eric Fetty gets a team that strikes out a ton. Um, I am a little intrigued. He has made a couple starts against Seattle this season. Hasn't been horrendous by any means. Um, so if somebody want to utilize him, I guess I wouldn't argue against it. I'm just not in a hurry to shove him into some builds. Shane Baz against Baltimore, probably not. He hasn't shown a ton of K upside, which is a little shocking. But it is his first year back from Tommy John, I believe, so that might take a little while. Matthew Boyd has thrown the ball really well for Cleveland in 3 out of his 4 starts. With that being said, going into LA, I'm not going to rely on him doing it again. Sebby Matthews shut down Kansas City the first time he faced them, which was actually his major league debut. Coming off a really rough start, I actually might be a little interested in him for GPP purposes. The Kansas City lineup can struggle a little bit. Game total of just 7.5 with juice on the under. It's obviously a slight dog, but his K prop's just 3.5. Juice is on the over. Kansas City isn't a huge K team, but he's gone over that number in 3 out of his 4 starts, and one of those was even just 2 innings. I think Matthews is an interesting kind of last man in upside type play. Mitch Spence against Detroit, kind of similar to Matthews. If one of these two is your last man in, I might lean Spence, just because the opposing lineup is weaker. He struck out 10 against Tampa Bay. He does have upside. I just think, Matthews is a more talented pitcher, in all honesty. Spence has a K prop of 4.5 with juice on the over as well. As we scroll down here, I think the only other guy I'm considering right now would be Dean Kramer. Hasn't been overly sharp. Shockingly giving up more home runs at home. But I think the matchup is interesting enough. He got it done against the Mets a couple starts ago, and this Tampa Bay offense is much weaker than the Mets. He does have 30 fantasy point upside, so it is somebody that intrigues me a little bit. K prop of just 4.5 though. That's kind of worrisome. But he is a minus 162 home favorite, so he might. There's a few guys that kind of could end up being the last man into the pool. It all kind of depends on where you're at and your thinking. But there we have it. There's my first look at pitching. If you enjoy what I bring to you, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, turn the notification bell on, get the alert anytime we drop videos here at DFS Army. And if you want to join us, get access to our coaches, tools, sheets, Discord, etc., I will put links in the description below. You can use promo code RAZ, that's R-A-Z, for 10% off monthly. And as always, best of luck, everybody.